So Julian, as leader of the Aedas London Arts team, you've been involved in some of the most prestigious and important theatres in the country for the past 30 years. What is it about the London Arts team, its specialisms, which have made you so successful over these years?
I think a large part of it is the diversity of our work across the arts and cultural sector. We're very much focused on performing arts buildings, but that embraces spaces for drama, music, dance, through to multi-purpose and participatory spaces. And I think it's that breadth of expertise across all those different sub-disciplines within the performing arts sector. And also I think because we work within the commercial theatre sector and subsidised arts sector, we have a sense of the kind of different priorities between those different areas.
This is probably a very deceptively simple question, but what is it in your view that makes for a really good theatre?
It does depend how you're coming at the building really, whether you're a member of the audience coming to be entertained for a night out, or whether you're as part of the creative team or the actors and performers on stage coming to the building in that way, or whether you're part of the management or the owner of the building who's looking for a viable and sustainable venue. I think for audiences, a good theatre, it starts sort of outside the building. When they arrive, what does this building look like? What is their journey into that building? And the quality of the public spaces, the facilities that they have, how they navigate and can find their way around the building. Is that easy? Can they get to their seat easily? Are they comfortable? Do they have good sight lines? Because the theatre basically has to put the audience and the actors in the best possible position for when that magic happens. So the audience have to arrive, be ready for the performance. And I think on the flip side of that, you've got the actors and creative team. They need a building that's welcoming to them when they come in for a get-in to start the technical side of the show, or whether they're coming in as the artist performing. They're comfortable with their dressing rooms and their route to the stage. Because you want, on the other side, you want them to arrive on stage to give their best as well. So the building's about creating that fulcrum in the middle, really, where those two bodies meet. And overarching that, as I say, you do have the management and the operational side of the theatre who are obviously looking to increase secondary spend and make it a successful and viable building.
So very much a holistic approach. Obviously for the general public, one of the main spaces that they need to appreciate is the auditorium itself. And that's really the make or break of the success of a theatre in many ways. So when you're approaching the design of an auditorium, where do you start in the process?
Yeah, I often like the analogy. It's a bit like the engine room. It's like that space has to be right, otherwise really the rest of the building is not worth kind of working through. So, I mean, it starts very much with about what is the space to be used for, and that again is quite a maybe deceptively simple question because it might have more than one use, and what is the hierarchy of those uses. You need to think about the scale, the size of the audience within that space, but if it's a space for music, it's a bigger volume than the space for drama, and you need to kind of work through all those kind of subtleties. And there are lots of kind of very pragmatic things about sight lines and access. I think you have to marry those very technical aspects with that aesthetic vision, which is really important, and that differs from the different art forms.
Now, over time, you've been involved in a variety of different theatre projects, whether it's refurbishment of an historical theatre, designed by Frank Matcham or something wonderful like that, or something which is completely built from new. Do you have any favourite theatre projects that you've worked on?
Maybe it's one of those things you shouldn't really admit to. I do have favourites, obviously. I think working on the Victoria Palace Theatre, as we did over the last 2 or 3 years, was an amazing project. It's a beautiful building to start off with. We did a wonderful refurbishment and extension of it, a really imaginative and effusive client on that project, and it's the home of Hamilton, the musical international phenomenon. It was an amazing moment really to be, I felt you were really part of some kind of theatrical moment. I think at the other end of the scale, there's a project we did several years ago for Northern Stage in Newcastle. Very, very different, a very raw, experimental space for an avant-garde theatre company. And I think with the idea of loose, more adaptable spaces, maybe that was a slightly forward-looking project, and we didn't really know that at the time, but I think that kind of creative space is very important. And I think always a personal favourite will be Tara Arts, a small theatre we designed for an Asian-led arts organisation. It's tiny, it's 100 seats, but it's one of those spaces that just has that magic spark.
It's very much part of the community as well, wasn't it?
I think it's a building that's evolved over time. It's so embedded in its local community and the wider Asian arts community in London. And it's a tiny project, it's a tiny little beacon in the sort of theatre world, I think.